Hey everybody, welcome back. We are on Unit 2, Economic Indicators in the Business Cycle. We're focused on price indices and inflation. We are on subunit 2.4. Let's start off with price indices. Now there's two of these, but before I talk about the specific price indices that are out there, let's define a price index. What is a price index? A price index is a measurement of a current year's price level in relation to a base year price level. Now I put a little bit of a pause in there because I want to make sure you hear that first part, okay? Because that's the thing I want students to really hold on to. What's a price index? It is a measurement of a current year's price level. That's it. It's just trying to measure a current year's price level. Now it's doing that in relation to a base year price level. Now some of you might be asking, what the heck is a price level? Understand, guys, a price level, that is a macroeconomics concept, okay? It is trying to talk about prices in our economy in general, all right? If we say the price level is going up, we are saying, on average, the prices of final goods and services are going up. Now, some prices might have went down, but on average, prices are going up, and therefore the value of the dollar is going down. Or if we say the price level went down, okay, what are we saying? We're saying that on average, the prices of goods and services are going down. Of course, some of them could have went up, but on average they're going down, and therefore the value of the dollar, the purchasing power of the dollar, is actually going up. Okay? So that's what a price level is, and that's what a price index is focused on measuring. Now, what are those two big price indices? Number one is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. This price index is just focused on goods and services the average household buys. Okay? That's all it's looking at is the goods and services the average household buys. This one also includes imports, okay? Why is that? Well, the average household buys imports. What's the other price index? It is the GDP deflator, okay? The GDP deflator. Now, I first want to just make sure we're clear, guys. Both of these are price indexes. They actually function largely the same, but they do have somewhat different purposes, okay? The GDP deflator, what is its number one thing it does? It takes nominal GDP data and adjusts it to real GDP data. So guys, the GDP deflator is the price index we use for adjusting nominal GDP to real and real GDP back to nominal. Okay, that's the number one thing it does. Now, I've already started a little bit talk about the differences when I describe the CPI, but let me make sure I'm being very explicit. What are the differences between these two? Again, this one only looks at goods and services the average household buys. This one looks at all final goods and services produced domestically. So if you're ever asked, hey, what's the big difference between these? That's their biggest difference. This one only looks at basically consumption goods. This one looks at consumption goods, but also what businesses are buying and what governments are buying and what the rest of the world is buying from us. Now, there's another one that's pretty much related to what I just said, and what I've already kind of talked about. There's another difference that's often put down on a list. This one does look at imports, again, because the average household buys imports. This one, the GDP deflator, does not look at imports, and that should make sense to us, guys. Look at its name, GDP deflator. What is GDP? GDP is only looking at things produced domestically, right? So this one only includes goods and services that were produced domestically. So those are the two big differences. They're very much related, but those are the two big differences we hear about these two things. Again, we know the major function for this one. That is to change real GDP to nominal GDP and go nominal GDP back to real. This one, the big thing here is we're going to use it to calculate the inflation rate. And by the way, you can use this to calculate the inflation rate. But we're going to use it to calculate the inflation rate so we can do things called cost of living adjustments. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. We want people's nominal income, which is the dollar amount of their income, to keep up with inflation. And that's why, so their purchasing power, okay, what they can buy is going to be able to at least stay the same. So the CPI, we're going to be able to calculate the inflation rate, and that's going to allow us to do these things called cost of living adjustments to make sure their nominal income increases in percentage terms as much as prices are going up. All right, and we'll talk more about the CPI in a little bit. The inflation rate. What is the inflation rate? I like to say it's the growth rate in the price level, okay? It's the growth rate in the price level. Why do I like to say it that way? Because anytime I hear growth rate, guys, the formula new minus old over old comes to mind, right? Any growth rate you're ever asked about in any class, hey, you're going to take new minus old over old. So what is the inflation rate? It's the growth rate in the price level. Well, what measures the price level? A price index, right? So here's the formula for it. We're going to say price index new. Again, that price index can be the CPI or the GDP deflator minus price index old over price index old. It's as simple as that, guys. You do that calculation and you will know the inflation rate, which is the growth rate in the price level. Normally what we want to do here is we want to have consecutive years, right? We're looking at consecutive years. Next, inflation, disinflation, and deflation. Inflation is anytime the price level goes up. So the definition of inflation, guys, the best answer there is just an increase in the price level. It's as simple as that. Remember, you know what a price level is, right? It's that general measurement or general concept talking about what's happening to prices in the economy, right? If you say there's inflation, we're just saying the price level is going up. In general, prices of goods and services are going up. Now, disinflation, interesting term. It's when the inflation rate, when positive, starts coming down, okay? So inflation is the price level going up. We can find out that the inflation rate, you know, the growth rate in the price level is 3%, right? That's inflation. That means it's the price of goods and services are going up by about 3%. But then it starts ticking down. Now 2%, now 1%. Still positive, right? The inflation rate is still positive, but it's coming down. That's what we call disinflation. It's when a positive inflation rate starts to tick down. And just to let you know, sometimes this is what economies have to do. Sometimes economies start operating with high inflation rates and they need to bring the inflation rate down. They don't want to get deflation, but they want to bring it down. And just to let you know, in other videos, you'll see that that's a painful process trying to bring that inflation rate down. Disinflation. Next, deflation. Deflation, that's when the growth rate of the price level is negative. It's as simple as that, guys. It's when prices are going, in fact, down. Again, disinflation, the prices are going up, but at a slower and slower rate. Deflation is when the price level does, in fact, go down. You could call it a negative inflation rate. That's what deflation is. Next, changes in real variables. The number one real variable that macro is going to care about is real wages, right? So changes in real variables. What economists like to say is this is what people really, at the end of the day, care about the most. It's not a change in nominal variables, it's real variables. So let's give you an example of what I'm talking about. When we talk about your nominal wage, that's just the dollar amount of your wage. Now certainly people do care about the dollar amount of their wage and they want the dollar amount of their wage to go up. But economists will say the logical thing to really be focused on is your real wage. What's happening to your purchasing power? What's happening to the amount of goods and services that you can buy? So here, let's just talk about it like this way. Let's say your nominal wage goes up by 3%, right? Your nominal wage goes up by 3%. That means you're getting 3% more dollars. And let's say the inflation rate is 3%. So price level went up by 3%. What happened to your real wage? We would say 0. So, hey, yeah, it looks like you got a raise. Your nominal wage, your dollar wage is going up, but your real wage hasn't changed. And of course, we could have a situation where that nominal wage goes up by 3%. The inflation rate is 4%, right? So prices went up by 4%. The amount of dollars you're getting only went up by 3%. So what's happening to the amount of goods and services? You can now buy less. So we'd say your real wage went down. It's a very typical thing that a macro economics test is going to test, right? They're going to say something just like I said, right? Nominal wage goes up by 3%. The inflation rate is 4%. What happened to people's real wage? The answer is the real wage actually went down. They can buy less goods and services because prices went up faster than the dollar amount of their wage. Now finally, calculating the CPI. So I want to make it pretty simple here, okay? So I'm going to say I want to calculate the 2018 CPI. Remember, what's a price index? It's a measurement of a current year's price level. So I want to measure the price level in 2018, but again, with respect to a base year price level. So the 2018 CPI, and we'll say 2010 is the base year, right? 2010 is the base year. So what would we do to make this calculation? We would go get a market basket of goods and services. We'd say a fixed market basket of goods and services. The base year's market basket of goods and services. So we go and say, hey, what were households buying in the base year? Well, on average, what were they buying? So base, BY, so base year market basket times, okay, base year market basket times prices in the base year. Prices, BY, prices in the base year. Now, we don't want to change the market basket at all. We got to keep the market basket the exact same because we want to just measure how much price they're changing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the base year market basket, that's the 2010, that same market basket, what they were buying in 2010 market basket, and then we're going to multiply it though by prices in the current year, right? By prices in the current year. So that's how we calculate the GDP. It has this fixed market basket of goods and services, which gets you to some questions we sometimes get about, hey, what's some problems with the CPI? And they mainly focus on the fact that that market basket is based on 2010, right? It's not really good at handling products that maybe were introduced after 2010, sometime between the base year and the current year. So it can mess up on it can give you a little bit of a wrong answer there. It can give you a little bit of a wrong number. Also, what it does, what some people have a problem with is, hey, sometimes what was bought in 2010, the price went up maybe a whole lot or a little, but let's say a whole lot, and people substituted away from it and started to buy other things instead. Well, hey, we're going to still be looking at that thing that the price went up a whole lot for. That's what's still going to be in it. It's going to overstate inflation, okay? It's going to overstate how much prices change. So that's a couple ways that people talk about the CPI having some problems. But anyhow, in general, that's how you calculate it. Hope that made sense to you. We'll see you in the next video.